This stuff isn't about weird girls gatekeeping Patti Smith and goth jewelry from the ex-cheerleaders, because adulthood often sees counterculture differently than our dimmer high school years. The thing is, a very real nerve is touched when those things that you loved for certain identity reasons, they're now being claimed by the types of people, or sometimes the exact people, who insulted the identity that informed your love for those things. Let's say that you got maligned for your feminist activism and sought comfort in the work of Miranda July, who was active in the punk feminist riot girl scene in the 90s. Now, everyone and their mum is buying Miranda's book, No One Belongs Here More Than You, because Kendall Jenner said so. Everybody's gonna hate me after this. Please hear me out. The majority of conversations on YouTube about weird girls is mostly centered on them being a fictional trope. Sometimes crossed over with the smart girl or the manic pixie dream girl, which is a whole disaster in itself. I'm not really interested in deeply analysing the Wednesdays and Cat Stratfords in media today. I want to talk about the weird girl experience in real social life, as in when you're called that by other people. And a distinctive feeling that I've had to deal with as my life has progressed is that at a certain point, either late high school or early university/college, some of the popular basic crowd suddenly wants to be like me, aka the weird girls of this world, who are no better than the basic or normie ones. I want to highlight that emphatically. Before we do anything, the reason that I'm saying girl over and over again in this video is because it's an experience I can speak on. Boys can obviously be weird too, but I'm not a boy. As for being non-binary, you're outside of the mainstream by definition and are therefore most often viewed as weird, no matter your other traits or interests. I was and am a weird girl, so that's what I can discuss here in this video. Also, as always, I apologise greatly for the traffic sound outside. We live next to a highway and I can't exactly put up a red light for when I'm filming. It's a very specific experience when qualities or interests that you got bullied for are now being adopted by many without a single acknowledgement of the irony, karma, hypocrisy, put a word on it. Everyone has the sacred right to open their mind into all kinds of new interests as they grow. But when you were put down for doing the same thing earlier in your life, it's a very complicated feeling that you'll really wish was not inside your head. There's a reason I have weird girl capitalized in this title. It's because there's a huge difference between a weird girl and the weird girl. Everyone can be the former at various points, but the latter is a backhanded gift that is impossibly heavy with complexity and negativity. And if it's given to you, it echoes throughout the rest of your life, because what does it even mean? Can't anyone be weird in their own way? Why is it a bad thing? Why does it make me so self-conscious? I'm just trying to exist. I need to differentiate between the girls with more mainstream tastes and the weird girls in order to make you understand this discussion as two groups of people. But any word I come up with for the girls with more common behaviors sounds like an insult. Basic, normie, mainstream. I had to use them in the title of this video so people would understand what I was going to be talking about, but there's nothing wrong with being those things. Liking what a lot of others like, being straight, conforming to trends or for usual expectations for things like gender presentation, doing what's expected of you if you want to. Live your best life of cheerful conformity if it makes you happy. There are zero things wrong with liking TikTok or studying PR or using Pinterest to create your dream it girl life. Goth YouTuber Drama Queen posted a video while I was working on this piece, and it just perfectly sums up exactly what I'm trying to say here.
Not everybody is going to express themselves in the same way that you are. Being alternative isn't the only way to express oneself. There are so many different ways, and of course you can look at someone who is quote basic and be like, you know what, that isn't something that I enjoy doing. I like this, I like that, and I also like looking a certain way. And that can coexist with people expressing themselves in a more toned down way. Whether you are somebody who is alternative or not, it doesn't make it that you have any less of a personality because you aren't alternative.
So as I sit here hating the words basic and normie, I've decided that my title for them inside this video will be Pretty Girls. Because while every girl or boy or NB on this planet is pretty or handsome in their own way, I say pretty with a capital P to represent those who society almost universally agrees to be pretty, beautiful, hot, appealing, worthy, etc. by mainstream standards. And as I said already, there is nothing wrong with being like that. The only time it becomes bad is if you start using those standards to judge other people's worth. And it's often the weird girls, boys, NBs who are hurt by this because they are outside the standards, whether intentionally or not. And this is important to note. This can definitely happen in reverse. We all know the relative cringe of a weird girl stating that her difference makes her better than others, not just the simple fact that she's different to them. This is the not like other girls phenomenon, which was discussed with great skill by Tiffany Ferg in this video from a few years ago. This most often happens because boys or the mean subsect portion of pretty girls are so down on a weird girl about her entire personality and interests that she decides to be proud of them and make them her armor. There's nothing wrong with doing only that, but the shittier the treatment is, the more likely the girl is to go too far the other way and decide that her less mainstream tastes or behaviors are a sign of being more interesting and superior to other people because the things that these are what is being called inferior constantly. This often happens to very young girls in early high school or even primary school, which was when the weird girl name calling started for me. So at that stage, I almost don't blame them for the individuality complex developing in their tiny baby brains as a formative experience. In response to getting bullied by other kids, or sometimes, tragically, maybe their own family. It's just my hope that these girls get to the end of high school / beginning of university and shake it off. But there are a lot of emotions attached to it, and that process of letting go can be very difficult for some. My experience of not like other girls-ish thoughts was always nothing much to do with the tastes of the pretty girls and everything to do with their behavior. Only some, of course. For example, it's not my business if you want fake or real tan on your skin. That doesn't affect me. My friends did fake tan, I didn't give a shit. What does make you your worst self, pretty girls, is bagging out me or other people who would rather stay our natural pale shade for whatever reason. Seriously, so many kids out there saying that I looked like I was sick or I looked like a corpse. Having a tan is a completely expected beauty standard in Australia, and so people just couldn't get over the fact that I didn't like how it looked on me. So you're not inferior to me because you wear fake tan, your behavior is inferior because you're being mean about it. Same with you whining about me having short hair like a boy, wearing vintage or DIY'd clothes, being remotely like an activist, actually putting effort into Shakespeare performance assignments, reading old or experimental books, and not treating teachers like shit, which I did once as a joke and have never forgiven myself. None of those things make me better than anyone then or now, except perhaps the teacher thing, because politeness and maturity are always better. Weird girls only tend to become on edge when they're constantly being told that those traits make you worse. I saw a YouTube comment once that I now can't find that said, "Everyone loves the idea of a weird girl, but not the actual weird girls." Oof. This kinda sounds like me and other weird girls are pulling rank in a game of Oppression Olympics, and that in a vacuum would be ridiculous. But here's the thing, this game of mainstream versus outsider is often the very real intersection of very real things. The pretty girls obviously have beauty privilege, usually white privilege, thin privilege, usually financial privilege, lack of disabilities, definitely no facial differences, no obvious neurodivergence, and are usually not members of the queer or trans community. These things, or the lack of them, can frame and rule people's entire lives. For example, let's say you grow up and study psychology at university and receive a list of autism symptoms and realize you're looking at every single reason why the weird girl at your school got bullied. Or you remember that the most tormented weird social group just so happened to be majority non-white. Or if the weird girl is working class, you might remember that the only time she ever got compliments was when she saved up to buy something expensive like everyone else had. I was and am never financially disadvantaged, but I have a slight differential version of this exception thing that hinged on, instead, the style of the clothes. I remember wearing a more expected outfit for a teenage girl when I went to my friend Masha's community debutante ball. Masha was too young for it. We were just there to watch the big girls make their grand entrance into Russian-Australian 2008 high society. I wore a relatively short, cream-coloured organza skirt which I had bought for its resemblance to Degas' Little Dancer statue. And I also wore heels. Just because they had a brogue-ish style that I really liked, they just also happened to be heels. And when the pictures got printed and came back, because yes, this was pre-smartphones, I remember a vast majority of girls in my year giving me compliments that were either kinda backhanded or genuine, but with looks on their faces that clearly implied that they couldn't believe that I could ever look like them in a situation like that. And I remember feeling really icky that I was only gathering these positive vibes because I was not looking like my usual self. This stuff isn't about weird girls gatekeeping Patti Smith and goth jewelry from the ex-cheerleaders, because adulthood often sees counterculture differently than our dimmer high school years. University and college are well known for opening people's minds, and so all of a sudden, Patti Smith and the goth jewelry are cool. Another mind-opening tool is also the weird girls of fiction that we mentioned, such as everyone loving Wednesday and wanting to be like her. The thing is, a very real nerve is touched when those things that you loved for certain identity reasons, they're now being claimed by the types of people, or sometimes the exact people, who insulted the identity that informed your love for those things. Let's say that you got maligned for your feminist activism and sought comfort in the work of Miranda July, who was active in the punk feminist riot girl scene in the 90s. Now, everyone and their mum is buying Miranda's book, No One Belongs Here More Than You, because Kendall Jenner said so. The intense Kendall Jenner fangirls are not always the ones being validating and nice to the girls who don't shave their underarms and can't remember the last time they wore makeup. Speaking of reading, the genre of fantasy that weird girls used to get insulted for reading is now on every pretty girl's booktube channel without a word of how she may, or other people like her may, have treated weird girls before Game of Thrones and A Court of Thorns and Roses. The weird girls were writing smutty fanfic versions of their favourite dragon stories on AO3, and it's that style that is now appearing in Fourth Wing, etc. The weird girls that you made fun of for wearing elf ears or fairy wings to formal are now possibly the ones writing half your romantasy TBR list, ladies. And I'll say again, reading that stuff isn't inferior, just common. Honestly, I love that so many more people are just reading their heads off these days. Thank you to the non-toxic parts of Book Talk for that. I mentioned fictional weird girls as being something that I didn't want to overly analyse in this video, but there's a very real aspect to it in terms of the actresses. It's the practice of pretty girls getting weird girl roles in film and TV. Jenna Ortega as Wednesday, pretty girl Disney star, weird role. Lily Rose Depp in Nosferatu, pretty girl supermodel, weird role. Now don't get me wrong, I love their performances. Lily Rose destroyed me in Nosferatu, and Wednesday is my favourite show if I had to pick one. But the point I want to make is that these girls could get almost any role that they want. Meanwhile, the less pretty girls are the ones being passed over. The ones who actually act like Wednesday, or the ones who have loved Nosferatu forever and naturally look half dead. And that could hurt those girls, and I understand why. It's kind of like a real-time, publicly visible example of how pretty girls are allowed to become weird girls, in this case fictional ones, and get away with it because of their pretty privilege. Meanwhile, the girls who are less pretty but have been weird the entire time are the ones getting maligned and made fun of. I just hope Lily Rose, Jenna, and other actresses in their places understand that besides their obvious talent, their beauty privilege helped them get those roles. There is no way around that. The other girls who could nail those roles just as perfectly are probably not the ones to even get the auditions, because they don't even get agents, because they're not even cast as the lead roles in their school plays, because they're less beautiful in a mainstream way. Their normal faces just aren't enough, even if they could be the next Meryl Streep when they act. That's what I want Jenna, Lily Rose, and all the other 10 out of 10 girlies in weird girl spaces to understand. I know how it must twist your insides to admit that your objective beauty gives you advantages over the rest of us. Even if you have very valid personal insecurities, and also the fact that you have talent and work hard. But it's the truth. Sorry. That's just a reality check from all of us actual Wednesdays, if you catch my drift. And for the millionth time, being a Wednesday doesn't mean you're the main character of the world's TV show, super genius, hilarious all the time. It just means you share qualities with her that are noticeable. Everyone is the main character of their own lives, yes? I know why this is so difficult for pretty girls to even say aloud, but even accept internally. Being aware of your privilege or hypocrisy as pretty girl turned weird means that you're doing something that this world tells us is impossible. admitting you're beautiful. The world conditions us to just not do that so badly that the truths like the ones I'm discussing just sound like impossibilities. But it's the truth. You're fucking beautiful. And because of it, you have very real social power over the girls that are less beautiful in a mainstream way, or are judged for certain unusual interests they have, like anime or metal bands, even though those interests don't harm you. You need to be aware of the damage you can do when you're all growing up together. So as this weird girl sits here and is completely aware of how insane this all sounds as she is speaking it, just acknowledge one joke, one post about how karma has bitten you. Or, shock horror, apologize. If some normie turned weird girl who treated me like shit sent me a one-sentence message that said, "I'm sorry I treated you that way, having crazy hair is fun, and I love my girlfriend," I swear I will invite them to the next Quiz of Joy gig without a second thought. Come make a zine with me, we'll watch the crazy shit at the film fest that would never get a cinema release, and I'll help you with your first slam poem. You are still an absolute 10 out of 10 mainstream model type, except now with questionable tattoos, crazy hair, and mismatched clothes. But if you just acknowledge or even apologize to the types of people who have occupied this space all along with no choice, I will never think of you negatively again. So to the Emily Ratajkowskis of the world with model looks and unusual tastes,
who is your fashion icon?
Patti Smith?
check yourself. Be your weirdest girl version, and I will love that for you, but just be aware that other people had to fight incredibly hard to be proud of the social space that you now want to occupy. Remember their story and what they probably had to endure on the way to saying, actually, weird isn't an insult. Thank you. Those words and that fight from those people are the ones that have opened up this place of more experimental selfhood that you now want to join. Be aware, smile at them, and metaphorically speaking, when the best Sylvia Plath book discussion comes up, don't talk over them. You know what I mean. Follow me on Substack for free for the written version of this piece and to subscribe to my newsletter. I also have Instagram, Medium, and an official website. Give this video a like, subscribe if you want, and comment down below your thoughts on all this. I love all of you, weird or otherwise. Keep going.